In Chapter 1, we're going to talk about design, the gravity that holds the picture together. In a certain sense, just as we are held on this earth by gravity in relation to all the other things that are in the earth along with us, our friends, our furniture, everything held together by gravity. There are 7 nouns I like to think of when I think design, and I try to think design all the time because it is design that'll make your work more professional. Composition. When you get right down to it, what else is there? If there is any art at all in your painting, it will be the composition of the painting itself. So anyway, the nouns, getting back to the nouns, there are 7. Line, shape, value, size, direction, color, texture. Those are the 7 nouns with which we should be thinking at all times when we're composing a painting. And then we activate those. Remember in your English study, we activate nouns with verbs. There are 8 verbs: unity, contrast, dominance, repetition, alternation, balance, gradation, and harmony. So those are the words that we think about. Now, out of those words, for a moment, I'm going to focus on one of them, shape, because I like us to think of ourselves not so much as artists. If you think yourself as an artist, you don't know what to do next. But if I think of myself as a shape maker, somebody who makes up shapes, sees things, sure, and observes things in the world, but converts them into appropriate shapes. Now, let's think about what makes a good shape. One shape better than another. This is a poor shape. It's a square. All 4 dimensions are the same. Now, this is a little bit better, this shape, because in this shape, we now possess direction, or this way, any way you want to go. It's somewhat more interesting, but still boring to a large extent. So now if we give it a kind of a tilt or a gradation, it's now a more interesting shape because of that variation. It activates itself within the outline of the borderline of your painting. And most qualifying of all, I think, is when you interlock that shape you've just made up, with other shapes so that you have interlocking and then eventually overlapping. When I rode the train one time, I had a day off while teaching in Vienna. I took the train from Salzburg to Munich. And you know what the train wheel said the whole way there? Overlappen und interlocken, overlappen und interlocken, overlappen, interlocken, overlappen, interlocken. That's the way I remember when I make one shape in relation to another shape, how you put them together. Now, let's talk for a moment about value allocating. Values are the increments from light down to dark, with steps along the way. We should have a better word than value. The British use the word tone, but it means the same thing, increments of light to dark, irrespective of color or size or anything else, just gradation, just increments from one degree to another, values. Value allocating is so important in a picture because it gives us necessary contrast. And what is a painting but a presentation of contrast? The dark against the light. Look how well this white handkerchief shows up even against the light middle tone of my shirt. See, there's a lesson there. The importance of white in watercolor is so very important. It gives the painting sparkle. If you design a watercolor painting without a white, you're going to make a painting without sparkle. Looking at my painting in front of me for a moment, we see a painting deliberately made with no value changes. The few value changes that are there were not intentional, but it's to show me and to show you that a painting is very difficult to make a painting when you don't use value contrast and only color differences. Many people think a painting is primarily the making of color, but you can make a painting without color as long as you have value differences to make the shapes differentiate one from another. So then that's so very important in value allocating. I'm going to go to my palette and I'm going to take a little bit of Payne's gray and I'm going to just think about these. I'm going to simplify my value problem by converting and restricting myself to merely 4 values. On my paper, I'm going to show a white here, and the only way I can show white is to put a line around it. And then next to that, I'm going to put what I call light, middle, that's a little too dark, so I'll add more water, light mid value. There we have that. And then next to that, I'm going to have dark mid value. And then I'll end up, of course, can you guess? Sure, you can guess, with black. 4 values. Now, with these 4 values, we can keep our work simple and contrasty, and our shapes will be rendered visible. And without value contrast, you don't have much. You just have mush. You just have color. So these values are so important in making our paintings visible. I'm going to do now a little demonstration of value using a little outline drawing that I made in advance. So I'm going to now allocate values on this outline drawing, which was made, the subject was drawn one time on the beach at Biddeford Pool in Maine. I have sky area, and I have fish shacks, and I have beach, and I have boats. I've decided in advance to make the boats my white shape, and a few white shapes also on this little staircase, which I thought added humor. There's a little bit of a beach going uphill. Beaches go uphill because they come up out of the ocean, of course. So some whites here and some whites here, but let's start first by identifying my whites. I identify my whites by painting middle value over everything that's not white. And since my whites are over here, and my boats, I'll just start there, and I'll paint my middle values around them. And now you can see the whites have emerged. Until you do that, when everything's white, nothing's white. So you get white by sacrifice. So I'm putting now middle value around the rest of the painting. I'm going to leave some whites here in my staircase. This is all just now flat painting with middle values, and there's no reason to be so cautious here. Just put them in like you're scribbling. I could do this with pencil, of course, but I thought it might be just as well to use paint. I'm going to hit this a little bit with my dryer and speed up the drawing of this a little bit. And this will only take a few seconds, and then I'll be able to put on my darker middle values. I'm using wash instead of graphite because I think the presentation comes off a little better. And also I have found over the years that many art students are not familiar with using the pencil as a tonal medium or as a value medium. Most people write with a pencil. They think of it as a linear thing. And so it's important, I think, to learn to use a soft pencil in a scribble fashion. I'm going to now, after the next darker value, the dark middle values, and I'll put those in like so. Again, keeping my whites separate and untouched. And I have a little sign up here hanging out of that building. That's what that little shape is. And see, a silhouette shapes. This is the Atlantic. This is a shadow from my little boat here. This is the Atlantic Ocean, so it has to have a horizontal top, and we make it slanting at the bottom. And this is a shack coming in from the side. We'll just give that a stroke. And down here at the bottom, we have another boat. Perhaps it's the rear of a boat. I was in the Navy twice, and I still have to think the rear of a boat. Well, it's the stern or whatever. I just, after many years, learned the difference between port and starboard. I have two people here, so I'll leave a little space for them. These are cast shadows. Here's a cast shadow coming from the staircase. And now I want to put in the dark. See, putting in the darks is lush. In the middle tones, you come in with a dark, there's just something kind of nifty about that. And I'll put that in just like so in the darkest place, and they help to make the whites then all the more visible. A little dark here, and perhaps the Atlantic Ocean could be a little darker, and I have a boom coming in, a mast of some sort that's pointing me toward my boat, and I'll just make this a little dark. Well, that's a little bit too dark. I want to just darken this roof a little bit, and this roof as well. So now we have a nice big silhouette shape. And I'll be referring to this little drawing as I do the chapters that follow, and then we'll be showing how to approach the same subject using different approaches. And so in the next chapter, the first actual painting procedure will be what I call direct painting, the most simple approach of all.